Hey, happy Thanksgiving, parents. One of the great joys about having older kids is when they get to come home for those Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks. What an incredible opportunity to have them back from a college campus, because that's the series that we're in, talking to Parker and Abbi Panetti about college and thriving on a college campus. But what kind of home do they have to come back to? What kind of peaceful establishment is there? And as a parent, how do you make a home that your kids want to come back to? That nourishes them and fulfills them. That's the conversation that we're having as we continue to talk to Parker and Abbi Panetti. So enjoy this conversation and enjoy the journey.
Parents, welcome to The Journey, a podcast to help you be the very best parent you can be. We are thrilled you are here and that we get to do life together. We are here to serve your family, and we're thankful you're joining us on The Journey.
What about being just away from home? What was it like for you? Let's just talk a little bit about, right, okay, we're not at home anymore, and you've got a lot of time commitment.
Yes.
And so did you, sometimes, kids are like homesick, things like that. What was it like for you as a young person to be away from home and go to college?
Yes, I think it was a mix of both for me. I
Okay.
think in the beginning of my college experience, I was ready to be in college and not be home. Thankfully, I had a shorter drive, so it was accessible for me to come home. It was accessible for my parents. But playing a sport, even though I may have not wanted to involve my family in my life, they still showed up. They came to every single one of my games. I had weekly games. They would drive in and get home at 1 o'clock at night, and watch. And so those moments were important to me. It was like, okay, I may not be showing the love to them right now, but they are still.
Yeah.
And so it was good to be close to home for me, close enough to where my parents could be involved in my athletic career. And their support and their encouragement and their showing up was what was so important to me. Now, there were moments where I didn't know it that I did really miss home, and I got to go home and be home for a weekend. It was really hard during a season, right? We have games weekly, games on Friday nights, Saturdays, and I wasn't able to come home. So there were moments where I was, I really miss home. Why do I miss home, right? I was in a moment of really questioning that.
Yeah.
But I got to have those moments and just see my family in random times as well. But there's going to be a mix of both. And even when you try, right, your kids are going to try and not miss home, and they naturally will at some point, I think. That was my experience, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think mine was trying to hey, you need to stay at college for as long as possible and don't come home until you have to kind of mindset, which was good. I think an easy part to not be homesick is just to call home. So that was easy of
I did not do that.
I
did not do that.
That was easy hey, when I'm walking to class, let me talk to my siblings, my parents for 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. So
we could always tell when you were walking to class, because as you said, Arkansas is a little hilly, right? And so
a little out of breath.
Yeah, a little bit out of breath. It's like, are we walking back, right?
There were some tough hills. But I think communication helps home be there. I think also I had family there, so I had cousins, and then ended up having my sister there at the same time. So that felt like home a lot of times when we would just do just family hangouts, which was fun.
Yeah.
And so the missing home was a good thing. I missed home, but also I tried to not come home too often. And it being a 5-hour drive, it was reasonable to come home if I had to, but far enough to where it wasn't anything consistent, once every 2 months or something like that. What I did notice for the first time, I think ever, which I was probably late to it, was when I was hanging out with some of my fraternity brothers, and we had Thanksgiving break, and they were so upset to go home. And I was like, man, I knew there were hard home lives. Obviously, I know that.
Yeah.
But there was a massive frustration with having to go home, and I would leave kind of right when they told us we could go home and we get a week off, whatever. I was like, I'm leaving, maybe even a little bit early. These guys would stay until Wednesday night, drive in for Thanksgiving Thursday, and go back Friday. And I was like, man, that's hard.
Yeah.
And so when you cultivate a home that is not only God honoring, which is important, but also where there's a relationship of, love and care, and home feels like it's safe.
Yeah.
Then there's a desire to go back.
Yeah, that was even the same for me, someone who wasn't a believer, and I really didn't want to be home. When it was time, like you said, on Thanksgiving break or Christmas break, I was like, I'm ready, right? I don't know what it is, but home is comfortable. Home is safe. It's the place that there is love.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, is establishing that first. So when your kids do leave, like, man, I miss that. I don't always get that in a college experience. So now when I go home, I know that I'm going to get that.
Yeah, we've got a couple episodes coming up next year. Already recorded them where we did the effects of divorce on children, and it's just I'm thinking about those episodes. I took a class, and this is where it all started for me. I literally took a class in college. I want to talk about just college and education as well, but I had one of my sister's friends had just found out that her parents were getting divorced. And so she was, and this is kind of crazy. I found some really unique classes in college, and the way that I had my college set up, I could take just whatever I needed to. And so she came up to me and she said, there's a class called The Effects of Divorce on Children, and I want to take it, but I don't want to take it alone. I was like, cool, like that sounds so awesome. It was so devastating. It was just a brutal class. Because a book had just come out by Judith Wallerstein. It was just talking about how damaging divorce is for children, and nobody had really thought about it. Right? It's kind of like I get, it breaks up the home, and the husband and the wife, and all the different things. But like kids were always just seen as like what they would say is they're malleable. They'll fit into whatever environment. And her study had basically come out and said just the opposite is true. That it's the most damaging thing that can happen to a young person, and it affects their life. And so I think about that statement of a lot of young people that don't have a safe place to go back to, or don't have a place that really kind of is their home, because their home life, right, is two different worlds. And so they've got to go back home, right, to dad's house. They've got to go back home to mom's house, and right, leaving college to go back to an environment that's just, a lot of tension, right? He's like, I'd rather stay at college. And so I think that's an important thing from a parent perspective to kind of think about is, right, the kind of environment that you're producing as you're sending kids away. Is it the kind of environment that they want to come back to? And right, divorce is a very difficult thing. If you've got a divorced family, right, how do you produce the best environment so that your kids feel like this is a place to come back to, that it's their place, it's a safe place? And I think it's just something you kind of have to wrestle with. So,
and like, I think too, a lot of kids don't want to go back home because they're living
differently than what their life is. Yeah.
And so when they come home, it reminds them of what they should be doing. And so even if your home is a safe place, even if your home is a place that is godly and is pursuing Christ, and your kid isn't, which happens, which is like in the hands of the Holy Spirit. Yeah. But when that happens, right, kids come back home and don't want to be home because it reminds them of what they should be doing. And so like there is that aspect too, where like your home should be a transparent home. So I think even like when you have like, hey, this is what we do, we pursue Christ, we do all these things that are great. But if there's not an open door between you and your child, then it gets like really difficult, because then that kid not only doesn't feel comfortable because they're living differently, but they don't feel like they can communicate. Right. And so that's probably the other aspect, even if it is a good home.
100%. That was me in a nutshell. I actually grew up in a family that went through a separation. By the grace of God, they did not divorce, and they now have a redeeming marriage, but that was my childhood, going back and forth. And so when I was coming home, right, to a redeeming family now, I was convicted. I was living a life of the world, and I was coming back, and I was like, man, this is what it was like before. Why do I feel so bad? Or why do I feel different? Or why do I feel weird? But my parents never stopped showing God's love and God's grace to me, no matter my actions. And so as parents, having the open arms and the welcoming doors of like, hey, we are so happy you are home. Right? It doesn't matter what you've been doing. Right? We're going to treat you the exact same before you left.
Remember back to your home that you left college and went home to for Thanksgiving and Christmas break? Well, I hope it was a home that was full of the joy of the Lord and warmth and love and affection from your parents. But I know a lot of us didn't have that. And so I just want my prayer for you to be that you would create that home, that you would create that environment. So whether your kids like mine are coming home from college and you get to enjoy and celebrate that, or whether your kids are younger and you're just about making that the kind of home and environment that nurtures them, that brings them up in the joy of the Lord. That's my prayer for you over Thanksgiving, is that you really focus on creating that particular environment in your home. Get your kids to church. Spend some time with them in devotions. Pray with them and celebrate them. And celebrate this Thanksgiving season.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Journey. We hope this podcast provides information to help you raise your children, and it would help us tremendously if you would like, subscribe, share, and review this content on your favorite podcast platform. It is our pleasure to provide this information to our community, and we look forward to our next time together on The Journey.